Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'll be showing you how to draft a bustier pattern with a trending keyhole neckline. So if you're interested in learning this, please keep watching this video. So guys, right now I'm starting with my basic lines. I have my shoulder to chest line, shoulder to bust line, shoulder to under bust, and shoulder to waistline. From my shoulder to chest line, I'm marking 7.5 inches, and for my bust line, I'm marking 10 inches. For my under bust, I'm marking 13 inches, and for my waistline, I'm marking 16 inches. So to easily get your chest line, you divide your shoulder measurement by 2 and add half an inch to that. So mine is 14 inches, and 14 inches divided by 2 is 7. I added half an inch to that, which gave me 7.5 inches. Or you can as well divide your bust circumference by 6 and add 1.5 to that to get your chest line. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw out my lines. Make sure you use your measurement and not mine in drafting your pattern. Use your measurement and not mine. So over here I have my chest line, I have my bust line, I have my under bust, and I have my waistline. I'm going to come over to the top here and mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 7 inches. I'm going to add half an inch to that because I'll be using a sleeve with this drafted pattern. So I marked 7.5 inches at the top and 7.5 inches at the chest line, so as to get a straight line. After doing that, I'm just going to mark my neck width. So I'm using 3.5 inches as my neck width for this pattern. And on my armhole line, I'm going to go down by 1 inch and use my ruler to connect these 2 points together to make my shoulder slant. This is because the shoulder is not straight. So now on my waistline, I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 7 inches, and 7 inches divided by 2 is 3.5 inches. As you can see, I'm marking 3.5 inches on the waistline, on the under bust line, and also on the bust line. I'm using my ruler to connect these 3 points together. And on my shoulder slant, which is my shoulder line, I'm going to be dividing what I have there by 2. I have a total of 4 inches, so if I divide that by 2, I'll have 2 inches, and I'll connect that point to my bust line. After that, I'm going to go below my bust line and mark 1 inch. I'm going to mark 1 inch below my bust line, and on my bust span, I'm going to mark half of an inch to the side going towards the center, and 1.5 inches to the side going towards the side front. Now I'm going to use my ruler to make a straight line, and after that I'll use my French curve. I'll use my French curve to connect the 1 inch I marked below the bust line to my under bust line using my French curve. I'll do the same for the other side. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to go over to my chest line and mark 1 inch above my chest line. Now this is optional. You can decide to leave yours at the chest line, or you can decide to go up by 1 inch. So you mark 1 inch from the center front to where you have your armhole line. And on that line, you will mark 0.7 inch on both sides of that line and connect it to the bust line to avoid gaping. So guys, this part is also important. You will use your French curve to smoothen the sharp edge around your bust area, just to give it a little curve around that part so that you don't have any sharp edge while sewing. And also I noticed that the length I have between this point and this point is shorter than the other side, so I'm just going to increase it a little so that when I'm sewing I'm not going to have any shortage of fabric. After this, I'm going to make my armhole curve, and whatsoever I have on that line I'll be dividing that by 2. So I have 6.5 inches from the shoulder slant to the chest line. I'll divide that by 2 and mark and go in by 1/2 inch. And also on my chest line I will be dividing my bust circumference by 4, which is 9 inches. And I will use my French curve to connect these 3 points together to make my armhole curve. So once you're done with that, it's time to move to the key part of this bustier pattern, which is the keyhole neckline. And for the keyhole neckline, on the line where I marked 1 inch above the chest line, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch so that by the time I open this up, I'm going to have 1 inch difference from the keyhole neckline, and I'm going to connect it to my neck width. And on that line I'm going to mark 1.5 inches inward. That will be done after the 1/2 inch I marked earlier, and I'm going to connect it to my shoulder line where I have the midpoint of my shoulder line. Now on the armhole line, I'm going to mark inwards 1.5 inches. So you will notice that there's a point where the 2 lines meet, and you will use from that point there and mark 1.5 inches inwards and also connect it to the shoulder line. So guys, once you're done with that, you should know that the space you have in between those lines will be cut out. And I'm just going to extend that line here to my new chest line. I'm going to extend this point here to my new chest line. I'm going to extend it like this. And you should know that the second line I'm making here will be cut off completely because of the space in between the lines I made earlier, so it will be cut off completely. I'm just shading out the part I'll be cutting out. And after that I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, which is 9 inches, and I have 1.5 inches here as my dart replacement. This is to avoid any shortage of fabric while sewing, so I'm just replacing what I have there at the side. And also for the waistline, I'm dividing my waist circumference by 4 and adding the dart intake, which is 2 inches, and I'm connecting the chest line, the point at the chest line, to the point at the waistline. Now I'm just going to mark my allowance. I'm going to mark my seam allowance. I marked 1.5 inches as my seam allowance. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out all the shaded parts of this pattern. I'm going to cut out all the shaded parts. So you will just pay attention and look closely to the part I'm cutting out so that you don't make any mistake while cutting out your pattern. at this point I am done cutting out my drafted pattern, and I'm just trying to arrange the pattern properly, fixing the armhole where it should be and the neckline where it should be. So guys, this is the final look of my front pattern, and you can see how beautiful it looks. So now it's time to draft the back pattern. Please watch my video on how to draft a basic bodice. I'll be leaving the link in my description box. As you can see, I went ahead to draft out my basic lines, although the underbust line is not necessary at the back pattern, but I went ahead to do so. And on the waistline, I'm going to mark my bust span, which is 3.5 inches. I'm going to mark that on the bust line and also on the other bust line. And I'll be connecting the 3 points together with my ruler. And on my waistline, I'll be marking 1/2 inch on both sides, and also come up by 1 inch from the bust line. And after doing this, I'm just going to make my dart legs with my ruler. I'm going to go over to the top here and mark my neck width, which is 3.5 inches. But before that, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 7 inches, and also I'll be adding 1/2 inch to that. Please ignore the first line that you are seeing. There is clearly a mistake because my shoulder measurement is 7.5 inches, and I'm going to mark my neck width, which is 3.5 inches, and the neck depth for the back pattern is 1.5 inches, and I'm connecting the 2 points together using my French curve. And on my armhole line, I marked 1 inch downwards for my shoulder slant. So on the chest line, I'm marking my bust circumference divided by 4, which is 9 inches, and connecting it to my armhole line to make my armhole curve for the back pattern, just like this. And for the waistline, I'm also marking my waist circumference divided by 4, which is 7 inches, and adding 1 inch as my dart intake, connecting the 2 points together with my ruler, and adding my seam allowance of 1.5 inches. Please guys, don't forget to add your zipper allowance to your back pattern. I decided not to add any zipper allowance to this pattern because I'm saving this pattern for something else. I'm saving it for another dress. So thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.